What's up guys, my name's Luke and welcome back to Motion Design. So I guess this is going to be technically the first video of 2024. So yeah, I hopefully will be a little bit better with uploading tutorials this year. I'm aiming for maybe once or twice a week, once every 2 weeks, sorry. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be more, maybe it'll be less, but hopefully it'll be more. We'll see how things go. But yeah, I thought I would do something a little bit different this time around. I was messing around with a personal project and I wanted to do a perfume commercial. I haven't done one of them in ages, like just a mock ad, so I thought I would do a mock ad. And I've been messing around a lot with depth of field recently and motion blur, so I wanted to have those as the main concepts of this video. It's kind of been a trend recently. I've seen quite a bunch of studios and stuff using this kind of like motion blurry and like depth of field technique. So yeah, I haven't really seen anyone do a tutorial on, so yeah, I thought I'd kind of break it down. I'm not sure if I can really say that this person started it or if I'm referencing this, because it's just kind of a trend recently, at least from like a bunch of the studios that I've seen. So yeah, let's create a really cool effect. This entire kind of like mock ad is going to be up on my Patreon with all the project files. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I think there's going to be, you can see the 4 or 5 project files. I might even add more to it as if I want to make the ad a little bit longer. But yeah, there should be a few project files up there that are all quite nice and unique. So yeah, I hope my Patrons enjoy that. If you're interested, you can support me on Patreon. But if not, a like and subscribe does go a long way. But yeah, without any further ado, let's get into it. Cool, so I have a bottle over here set up. It is honestly nothing special. Let me just quickly open up my render view so you can see what it is. Just add in a dome light over here. So as you can see, it is just a very basic bottle, and I just have a liquid over here. There's like a little metal thing over there, and then the bottle itself. This will be included on my Patreon, so yeah, don't worry about that. And then the actual label over here, it's not even a proper thing. All I'm using is just a downloaded image of a label over here, and I just have that flat projected onto this over here. Yeah, if you're ever trying to texture and you have an image that you're trying to match on, at least it's something that I've learned recently, so that I would show you, is that if you use the projection mode over here flat, and then you change it to this setup over here, you can now move around the texture and have it fit exactly where you want it to fit. So yeah, just a little, tip. Not sure where I learned it from, but I learned it the other day and I was like, whoa, that is so useful. But yeah, this is mainly going to be a lighting setup, and then also just some like motion blur and like depth field techniques. I think I'm going to do 2 videos, one where it's a motion blur and then the other one where we're showing more of a depth field, and I'll do a separate lighting setup for each of them just so that we have a variety of different looks. Cool, so with the setup here, let's set up our camera and just create a nice looking shot. So I'm going to do a pretty tight photo length, so let's go with like 110. Let's frame this up, maybe something like that. Let's just make sure we have the grid over here so we can center this. That looks quite nice. Awesome. Cool, so I'm going to change to my top view now and change this to perspective and press NA just to get back to our ground shading. Let's add a plane over here. Change back to our default selection over here. Let's just move our plane back. Something like that should be good. And now we can delete our dome light. Let's go and grab a redshift area light. We're going to change this because this over here is quite small. I did it to real world values. If I had a human over here, you can see that it's roughly the same size that it should be. Although actually it does look a little bit bigger, but it doesn't matter. It'll be okay. But anyway, with our light selected, let's make this 100 by 100. And let's make it a disc. Actually, maybe 75. Still looks quite big. Something like that. I also want to make the spread quite narrow. The reason that I'm going to do that is that I really want this nice kind of like fall off to get this like quite nice gradients over there. Then let's go via camera, use camera, and we're going to use selected object. So now we can use our light as our camera over here. And just kind of find a place where we think this looks nice. So I think something like that looks quite nice over there. And then I just want to change the color. Let's do something I think the original one that I did was like this kind of like orangey color. Orange has been kind of my favorite color recently. And also we're trying to match the color of the liquid in the bottle just so that it's like all kind of complementary colors. I mean, obviously you can do like a different color, actually a complementary color, but I wanted it to be a very similar color to the original color over here. And here, let me just make it just a tiny bit darker. Something like that. I think that looks quite nice. Awesome. Let's go and change our camera back to our camera over here. And we want to... How do I get out of this again? There we go. And let's just change back here. I actually hate it when this happens. Default camera. There we go. That's the correct thing over there. Cool. And now what I'm going to do is let's add a light. Let's make this 50 by 50. Bring this to the side over here. And I'm going to use just a custom texture. I showed you guys how to do this in like previous tutorial. I mean, it's literally the most basic thing of just creating a basic gradient. And I just want to use that basic gradient so that we have a softer pull off over here, because that just looks a little bit more visually appealing. Let's go into it here and let's exclude our plane, because we wanted to keep it like dark over there. Ooh, let me just make this just a little bit tighter over there. Maybe just bring this back a little bit. So if we're really only catching like the rim over there. Awesome, that looks good. Let's create another one of these, and I'm going to use a different texture now. I'm going to use a spherical gradient. Let's take this, bring this down, and let's put this at like 90 degrees below it, just to catch some highlights here at the bottom. Cool, so at the moment we can't see the label, and also we can't see the side of here, so let's take our gradients, move it up again, and we're going to point it so that it's just getting a bit of the top over there. Okay, something like that looks quite nice. Let's just bring down the intensity over here, and also the intensity of our other lights. This is going to affect anything, but I think our new light does both of those for us, so we can get rid of one light. I think something like that looks quite nice. Let's just add back this previous light, and then let's just do one more light over here for our logo. So let's go add a target, and let's set the target as our label over here. Seeing as though this is kind of a product render, you always want to make sure that the actual product itself is lit nicely. Cool, so this looks nice. We have this lit up, but we don't really want it to affect the glass over here. So let's go project, and let's make sure that we set this to include, and then change it to label. And we still get some light over here. We can change that by going over here into our details. Let's just turn off the reflection and the transmission. That should solve that problem. And now this is lit, and that looks kind of nice. Cool. I think the only other light that we kind of want is something over here, just to kind of fill in that little area. Let's just add one more of these. Let's make it kind of small, maybe 20 by 20. Yep, I think something like that works quite nicely just to frame it. You can add another kind of rim light over there. I mean, I think we can solve that just by taking our backlight and just moving it back a little bit. But I don't want it to be too prominent. Something like that, where it's just a subtle outline over there, just so that black doesn't get lost in our background. Oh, I think the only other thing that I don't really love too much is this bottom light. Let's see what it looks like when it's off. Yeah, so one thing with lighting glass is that you're kind of lighting with the reflections, technically. You'll notice that now if we have to move our glass around, if we point it over here, the lighting set just does not work, mainly because we're using this background as the lighting. So let's see if we had to add a lights, dome lights, add a graph over here. Search C4D. Now this method should work. There we go. This is doing it wrong previously. And set that to a gradient. And let's set this color to a similar color to what we had. Awesome. But we want this dome light to exclude our plane over here. I'm mainly doing this just so this over here isn't pitch black like it was previously. So let's just find a spot that catches the light nicely. And it's a lot more subtle, but I think that works. Cool, so I guess that's the basics of how I would have lit this. I think when actually lighting this, spend more time with it. I mean, if you look at the project file that I have up on Patreon, you'll see that even though I think there's only like 3 lights, they're more strategically paced, and there's certain things with these style like lighting tutorials where I can't really show you everything. It does just take time, and I don't want to spend like an hour over here just going over lighting, making it perfect. It's more just showing the fundamentals of how to get a good looking render. So this over here is not perfect, but it's close enough for this tutorial purposes. If you're following along, maybe just spend a little bit more time, put some love into it, and you'll get something cool. So I think this works fine for now. Let's go and take our bottle, let's duplicate it, and let's just remove the label. You'll see why in a second. We're going to use this bottle, throw it into a cloner. With our cloner selected, let's set this to linear, change this Y to 0, and then let's rotate this maybe like 45 degrees. So now what we have is a bunch of bottles on top of each other. Also want to go over here and point 0.01, 0.01, 0.01, just so that it is a tiny bit bigger. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cloner, set a keyframe over here and a keyframe over here, and just rotate it. Let's make this linear. And let me just bring down my render settings a bit, change this to like 1. And if I had to render it right now, it's going to look kind of the same. And we don't really want that. We want it to have motion blur to it. So let's go over here to our motion blur tab. Let's enable this. It's got a custom, and let's just make these a little bit, I guess we can go to movie. Set this to like 720. And let's see what that looks like now. Sorry. The reason for that is that's the reason we're not getting any animation is because we're on this keyframe where there is no animation. So let's go over here. And now we can see there's a bit more animation. I think I want this to rotate a little bit more. Maybe make it like 360. And let's give it maybe like 1 more clone. Let's go back. Have a keyframe. And now look, we have this really cool effect over here. So this by itself kind of looks not that great. But I think what I did in my original render was I took a keyframe over here and a keyframe over here and set this to 0. So as it spins, it kind of like falls back into place, kind of as like a transitioning effect. Let's increase our motion blur, maybe to like 15 frames. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, well, this is on our launch shot over there. See what it looks like here. But that looks a lot cooler. Let's maybe change this to maybe 8 frames over here. Nice. So now this in motion will have this really trippy kind of like motion blurry effect. I'll have a video up of what it looks like. But yeah, just having a kind of like transition through this can give you a pretty cool result. Cool, so let's just add one more thing to this here. Right now, it looks good, but it's not like amazing. I'd spend a little bit more time with it just to make it look a little bit better. The only other thing that I really want to add here is just some depth of field. Let's go and let's select the way we want to focus. So I want to focus on, in the beginning over here, I want to focus on the CH. Let's set a keyframe over there, and then at 60 frames, I want to focus on the EL. Just so that as the animation goes, we kind of focus from like the CH channels, to kind of have the viewer read the channel as it goes. Let's set on bokeh over here, and let's set this to something kind of small. Something really small. So 9.5. I think that looks pretty cool. Now you'll see that it's just this and this that are kind of in focus in the beginning. And over here, it's just the CH over there, which looks pretty cool. And now if we have to add back a more, even actually just that, even without the motion blur, looks pretty cool, to be honest. Let's see if we have to bring this motion blur down further. Actually, I think it looks a little bit cooler when it's further down. So yeah, with this, when it comes to the actual compositing stage of it, so the problem that I found is that when it gets to around here, it kind of has this very metallic look to it. The reason that we have that metallic look is that we're cloning this, and so now what we're seeing is 5 different bottles on top of each other. So there's not much light going through because, there's just, 5 bottles on top of each other. So what I did to kind of save this render is I rendered out one version where I have the spinning and I have the motion blur. And then I render out another one where there is no spinning, no motion blur. And I just kind of composited that and just did a After Effects opacity change as we get to the end of the animation, just so that you can kind of like read the label at the end of it. So yeah, pretty simple tutorial. It's really nothing advanced or kind of crazy in this. It's really basic. It's just kind of how I created this style frame. So yeah, the next one, in my opinion, this one was super cool. This again was using motion blur. What I have is I have a spline drawn out over here, spline over here, and then I have a cloner, and that's just set to object, and the object is the spline, and I just have it animated along the spine. So if I had to go press play now and go back into my camera view, you'll see what happens is that these just kind of spin around, and it gives us this really cool effect. But when we render it out, that's when it really looks cool, because look at these trails. When it decides to load, look at these really nice trails over here, which just looks super cool, super abstract. So just a little tip when it comes to this one. If I had to go back into our motion, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. And yeah, if you're interested in the project files, they're up on my Patreon. Those do have a little bit more of love put into them, and I had actually put time into them to make them look really good. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed them. But yeah, until next week, I hope you have a good one. Peace.